In life, we encounter people every day, all of whom have stories to share. We rarely take the time to ask people their personal stories, many of which will touch, move, and inspire us in some way. Matt has a passion for making authentic connections and learning about people from all walks of life. He has lived a life of giving back to the community and making a difference in people's lives. Are you ready to meet fascinating people and hear some inspiring stories? The Matt Hilton Show will introduce you to a world of possibilities you never knew existed. Sit back, be present, and enjoy. Here's your host, Matt Hilton.
Hi everyone, Matt Hilton here, and you're watching The Matt Hilton Show. Today's guest is Sophia Cannon, and Sophia is going to be telling us a powerful and impactful story that goes back to her days from Trinidad through September 11th, 2001, and to what she's up to today. Stay tuned for a message from our sponsor.
Inspired, experienced, customer-focused. Find a mortgage that fits your needs with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage, specializing in construction and closing all types of loans, including jumbo, portfolio, conventional, FHA, and VA. A tenured team, outstanding service, competitive programs. Finance your dreams with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage. mleach.firstunitedteam.com, 214-316-7915. mleach at firstunitedbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. Today's guest is Sophia Cannon, and Sophia Cannon and I met maybe just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you start connecting dots. I'm a connector in life, and when you start connecting the dots, it gets really, really interesting. So Sophia's husband, Danny, and I met at a leadership camp in 2015 in upstate New York. That was before Sophia even met Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that dot. We were just having a conversation before we went live, Sophia, and that was, I believe that there's a reason that you're sitting with me here today, that there's a reason why our world's, like, over the past 7 years has gotten to this point. And so I am so glad that you're here. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And the little bit I know about you, and I'm sure I'm going to find out more about you today as we move on through this show. And I want you to share yourself with the audience as much as you're comfortable with sharing. And so want the audience to kind of know a little bit about you. So tell us about who Sophia Cannon is, and in maybe a couple of minutes, just a kind of an overview of who you are, and at the end, tell us 3 words that describe you.
Oh, big question. That's a very big question. Who am I? I would like to say that I am a culmination of all of my experiences, everything that has happened, and I'm a Trini girl, island girl at heart. Born on the island of Trinidad and Tobago, grew up, small family, absolutely loved that I grew up in a tiny little village, one road, maybe about 100 people, knew everybody, nice, close knit. And that was, I didn't know exactly how important that was in building my childhood. Moved to Florida with my family when I was 12.
Okay.
My parents won the green card lotto. I know not a lot of people don't know about that. So we came here, legal citizens, and lived in Florida for some time, went to New York for some time, found our way to Texas. While in New York, lots of experiences. I worked at the World Trade Center while I was there in New York. Afterwards, my mom was at JP Morgan Chase at the time.
Okay.
They offered her a package to relocate to Texas. We moved here.
Right.
Try to figure out how to find my life after that. Found my way to school. Became a counselor. I now have my own counseling practice. Got 2 kids, an amazing husband. Amazing kids.
Amazing kids too. Yeah.
I didn't say that at first because everybody knows how stressful kids are.
True. How many kids?
2 boys,
Okay.
Mother of boys. And just amazing family and friends. I cannot attribute my success, my health, my mental health, my physical health. It's a lot that it takes a village to raise each person, and I am so grateful for my village.
Yeah, for sure. I am I want us to go back, if you will, to September 11th of 2001. And I believe that was the time that you were in New York,
Mhm.
and you were working in 2 World Trade Center.
Mhm.
If you can, like, paint a picture of what that morning was like when you arrived at the building, and what transpired. And I'm going to be quiet and let you tell your story. Yeah.
Well, the thing about that day was an absolutely gorgeous day. It was one of those days where absolutely blue sky, not a cloud in the sky, and it was that little crisp air that flows in at the beginning of September in New York. So there's a little bit of a chill to the air, not exactly cold as yet. Um, I'm not trying to shine a bad light on Caribbean folks, but I was habitually late. And that particular morning, I remember my mom saying, "Hey, you're going to be early. You're going to get there right at 8:45." And she got off at her stop. I stayed on to get off at the next stop at the Cortlandt exit. And I chose that stop. I could have gotten off at the stop underneath the World Trade Center and walk into the building, but I absolutely loved getting off across the street from it and walking across the plaza so I can look at the grandeur of the building while I'm walking in. It was just that, yeah, look at me. I'm in this building. I love this place. And as I was walking across the plaza that morning, the farmer's market was setting up. And I had mac and cheese in my purse with me for lunch. And I'm like, I'm not going to need that. I want to get some fresh fruits. I want to get some apple cider donuts. That was the best thing in New York fall time. And I was already planning coming back down and getting some stuff for lunch that day. Went into the building. I loved passing by that Ben & Jerry's, getting my ID. Since I was a temporary worker at the time, I was on assignment at from a temp agency. And every morning as I went in, I would get a badge with my ID. So it had 92nd floor, my name, and the time that I checked in. And I remember going up into the elevator banks and when you went into the elevator, you have to get off at a certain floor and take a separate set of elevators to get up to the 92nd floor.
Okay.
And as soon as I got into the second set of elevators, that's when I started hearing a lot of screaming and a lot of noise. But they were doing construction in the elevator banks the weeks prior, so I really didn't think much of it. I remember telling myself, what are they doing? Why are they screaming? They're probably having fun today. And as soon as I got off the elevator, I turned left. There's a receptionist desk and just a little glimpse of window to the left of the receptionist desk. And that's when I started seeing the paper just blowing from One World Trade Center. And I just stood there and I couldn't move because it took me back to the day before. I used to, after work, I would go meet my mom, wait for her to finish working, and then we'd take the train home. And when I was walking past One New York Plaza, there was one piece of white paper on the plaza, nothing else. And it just picked up and just started slowly going higher and higher. And I was looking at it just going up against the side of the building and not looking at where I was going, and almost fell down the subway steps. My mom grabbed my hair and pulled me back. So when I got to work the next morning, seeing the white paper drifting, it made me stop. I was like the night before, and I just stood there. Next thing you know, Patrice, my boss at the time, I realized she was in front of my face yelling, "Sophia, Sophia." And that kind of woke me up a bit from looking at the paper, and she's just like, "You gotta go. You gotta go with Brian. Go with Brian. Go down the stairs. Go now." And I just realized that people were evacuating. And so I got in the line of people, and then I saw her turn to go back into the building into the floor. And I turned around and I was like, "Patrice, well, where are you going?" And she said that she's the fire marshal for that floor. So since I was still there at that elevator, other people must be coming up on the elevator on the other side. So she said she had to go and make sure everybody got off the floor before she got off the floor. And I actually saw Patrice's husband holding her image the next morning. on the news. She didn't survive. For a long time, there was a lot of guilt that she found me in the elevator banks, went back to check, and what if she was leaving already? And I stopped her from leaving at that point. But there's still some sadness, but not as much guilt when I think about it, because I learned how to replace guilt with gratitude.
Mm.
I had to learn how to replace guilt with gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had checked in at the ground floor and you got a badge, your temporary badge. Didn't have a timestamp on it? Or
It should have a timestamp on it.
yeah, and I believe I saw 8:46, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I see in my head.
Yeah, something like that. And what's interesting about that time is at 8:46 was when the first plane struck One World Trade Center.
Yep.
Right? And you were how old at the time, and what was something else that was going on with you?
I was 18. I was 18 years old. I was 6.5 months pregnant. And yeah, it's a long story. It's a very long story. 92 flights of stairs, well, 92 floors going down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long story. But there's one part of the story where I stopped with a woman. There was an elderly woman, and she started to slow down, and I stopped with her because nobody should just stand there. Everybody's leaving. I couldn't just walk past her. So I stopped and asked her, why she stopped, and she said that she started off on the 110th floor, and this happened before in 93, where she went all the way down, and then after a while she was able to go back up. So she's like, she's gonna wait and see, if it's fine, and they're gonna, just send everybody back up. And that was my first time knowing that there was an attack on the World Trade Center before. I did not know what happened in 93. And so I thought, okay, well, I will stay with her. I just didn't want her to stay by herself. And I started going onto the floor and getting little styrofoam cups of ice and water, because it was getting warm at the time. Well, warm is an understatement. And to keep us cool. And I remember standing there, she's telling me about her grandkids were at home. 3 grandkids, if I remember correctly. Her daughter struggled with substance abuse. Their dad was in jail, and her daughter was in jail or a treatment program, but she had responsibility for the kids, and she was worried about getting home to them. And I just stayed with her until somebody opened the door behind us and got on the floor, and it was a man and a woman. And the woman's like, "You're pregnant. You have to get out of here because the smoke is going to affect the baby and affect you." And I'm like, "You can't tell that I'm pregnant. My mom makes me wear a girdle. Nobody knows." And she's just like, "You must go. You have to go. Get out of here. You have to keep walking." And I was arguing with her about nobody knows that I'm pregnant. I don't know how she knew I was pregnant, but I kept going. And when she said that, that was the first time that I started hurrying down the stairs. The rest of the time I was just walking down the stairs, but I started hurrying down the stairs until I got to an elderly woman in front of me, and those stairs are narrow, absolutely narrow. It was hard for 2 people to fit on a stairwell. It had to be single file the entire time. And there was this elderly woman, and she had a huge purse on her side. And I couldn't go past the purse, but because they told me, they were like, "It's getting hotter. It's getting harder to breathe. You have to go. I have this adrenaline now. I'm trying to go." And I'm like, I can't push an old lady. I can't. So I started to calm myself down, to slow down. And I started trying to talk to her. And I remember telling her, "Do you smell that? It smells really sweet, almost like flowers." And she stopped and she turned around and she looked at me and she goes, "Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever say that. Only the gates of heaven will smell so sweet. Don't you ever say that." And then the next thing, we get to this point in the stairwell where we had to get out of the stairwell because the stairwell kind of ended and we had to go onto the floor. Absolute chaos. And there's like bits of pieces of those memories. I mostly see a lot of them in my dreams. And then we had to find a connector to get back down for the rest of the stairwell from there. And I blacked out. I don't remember much from the 72nd floor all the way down to the 3rd floor. I remember hearing my voice say, it's the 3rd floor, we're almost out, we're good, guys. So apparently somewhere in my young mind, I was trying to keep people calm, and my own voice woke me up saying, we're almost out of here, it's the 3rd floor, we're almost out of here. And seeing the 3rd floor, I remember seeing the 2nd floor. That's where you get out, and it's a very common view where it's the most shocking view because that's where you see, not the plaza, the plaza level. It's the plaza level, and you have the huge glass windows, and outside in the courtyard, there was that globe. The globe is now in Battery Park. That's dented in. There was an airplane engine and tons of paper and debris everywhere. And I remember it just being so surreal, like absolutely, I couldn't understand it. And that's when I started looking at the people who were around me, and their hair were fused together, skin, a lot of people were burnt. There was one person I remember seeing on their arm. I don't even remember exactly how the wound was, but I remember seeing a vein, and they would like freak out a little bit and let go and then have to hold this vein. So for a while, it was hard for me to eat any meat. I still refused to eat beef because of, the huge veins in beef, but seeing that. But I realized the crowd of people that I was in was not really the crowd that I started with. Mm-hmm. Then from the plaza level, we had to go down one set of stairs to the concourse level where they have all of the shops on the bottom. And there was, how else would I describe this, traffic? We were piling up because there was a turnstile at the bottom, so you can only go one person at a time through this turnstile. And there was police officers, trying to help people get out, slowly. And there was one police officer with a fire extinguisher trying to break one of the turnstiles so we can get out faster without having to go through one at a time. And this is the part that I don't like talking about, but it's still a part of the story. Coming out from that turnstile, I had a view of, several of the stores that were at the bottom of the trade center, and they're expensive stores, lots of expensive product in there. But there were several police officers and firefighters in there helping themselves to product, like holding stacks of product in their hand. And I remember thinking, we need help getting out of here. And mind you, there were several going up. I just don't remember a whole lot because I blacked out in that time. That's why I don't place blame on. There were too many good firemen and police officers and service people in general. That's why that one part of the story I don't like speaking about as much, but it's still the reality of what I saw and what happened. So seeing that on the way out, we ran through, I ran through that concourse level to get to an exit. And there was another line. And maybe it's the ADHD in me. Maybe the panic was like really setting in because you can see that there was danger. I knew there was danger in the building. There was fear, but we didn't know exactly what it was, and we couldn't see a whole lot of it. You could feel it. You can feel the heat. You can smell the smoke, but at no point in time did my naive brain say, you're in a building that's on fire. Never, ever crossed my mind. But when I was standing in that line, waiting for people to go out, there was those huge windows broken open. Why not go through the window? why wait in a line? So, yeah, you know what I did by myself? I left the line. I climbed through the broken window and was attempting to go over a pile of debris so I can get to the sidewalk. And I'm like pushing and pushing, and it was almost like quicksand. I didn't understand why I kept going down and down until this female police officer was pulling me back, and she's like yelling like, no, 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 don't go that way, no, no, no. And that's when I realized I was holding on to like an arm, and there were bodies under me. They were using that area to move the bodies of people who were falling to keep it out of the way so they could, I guess that's what I assume, but I don't know why or how I ended up in a pile of bodies. And she helped me up and to the front of the line. And I remember crossing and seeing, there was a church. I can't remember the name of the church at this moment. And the cemetery. I remember seeing the back of the cemetery and coming out. And when I initially got into the stairwell, when Patrice told me to get in, after about one or two turns, I was paired up with this woman named Rhonda, and she telling me about her life. But as soon as I crossed the street at the very end, getting out of the building, there she was. And she's just like, okay, Sophie, I gotta go meet my husband this way down Broadway. You go find your mom. And well, at the beginning, she helped me stop on several floors to try and call my mom, because she wanted me to tell my mom to not come to the World Trade Center because it'll be too much chaos that I'll come to her. We never got a chance to because the phone lines were crazy. There was long lines to even get to a phone. So when we got out, we're standing outside the cemetery. And I remember that was my first time looking up and seeing the building on fire. And it was low. I remember thinking, why was the fire so low? On the other building, the fire was really high, but on the building I just came out of, the fire seemed really, really low. And I didn't understand. And it was like, how did I get out of a burning building? I didn't understand what was happening. And I kept screaming at her, and she was just like, no, just go. But then a woman randomly came up to me, and she's just like, I gotta find my husband. He's on the 92nd floor. And I'm like, I was on the 92nd floor. And she's like, do you know him? And she's like rattling off his name and his information. And I'm like, I don't know. What view did he have? I was looking at Battery Park. And she goes, no, he had the city. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she took off running towards the building. And I tried running the opposite way down Broadway. And I don't know why I did that. That is not how you get to my mom's job. And I remember just running, and there was absolutely nobody running that direction. And there was suitcases just littered everywhere, paper, dust. There were parts. I didn't understand what parts they were. Now it's airplane parts. And then all of a sudden a police officer came out. I don't know where he came out of, and started running towards me. He's like, get back, get back. There are bombs and stuff in cases, and we don't know where it is. And they're, just yelling at me on all kinds of stuff. And I remember turning around and running, and I'm like, find the bull, find the bull. If I find the bull, I can orient myself. And I remember trying to break through a crowd of people just to get away from the site. And they kept trying to grab me and say, did you just come out of there? Did you just come out of there? And it's like, yes, but I gotta go. And then I saw this little, I think it was like a little inn, like a little hotel, motel type thing. And I had to step down. I needed to find a phone to call my mom. And I remember seeing the vacancy sign. And I went down, and the person who was at the counter said, did you just come out of the building? I'm like, yes, I need to use your phone, please. I've got to call my mom. And I called her, and she actually answered. And the first thing I was just like, Mom, I got out of the building. I'm coming to you. Don't come to me. And she's like, Sophie, is this you? I'm like, Mom, I'm coming to you. Don't come to me. Is this really my Sophie? Sophie, is this really? It's really me. I'm coming to you. Don't come to me. And she's like, okay. And I hung up. And I remember just running. And I used to make that walk from the trade center to her job every day. It felt like it took forever. I felt like I was just going back roads and just confused. And I finally get to her office, and the security guards there know me because I was coming every day. And as soon as they saw me, I saw them pick up the phone as I was running up, knowing that they were calling my mom to let her know I was there. And I remember sitting on that seat, and they were like, I'm going to go get her. You're good. You're good. I remember sitting on that seat and just like, what just happened? And this is embarrassing, but I thought my water broke, but I guess I was anxiously peeing myself because my water didn't break. And when she came back down, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I think I peed your seat. I am so sorry. And then my mom and a whole group of people were trying to get me to go in an elevator. And I remember screaming at them. I just listened to all of these elevators exploding in this building. There's no way you're getting me in this elevator. And they're like, no, 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 it's safe. And I'm like, I just heard tons of elevators exploding. I do not want to go in this elevator. What do? They crowd me, push me in the elevator, carry me up the stairs. I run out of the elevator. They sit me down at the desk. And there's a great view of the city from there also. And I think I just sat down, and then all of a sudden you just heard just huge boom. It wasn't even a roaring anything. It was just this boom. And then everything went dark. And what do? They dragged me in the elevator again. And I'm like, we're supposed to be in the stairs when you hear a boom in a building. So we got in the elevator, and we go down, and my dad just happened to get the last train from Midtown, and he was standing outside my mom's job. And he grabbed my mom and I. We went around the back of the building, crossed over barriers, and was finding our way to the Brooklyn Bridge. That's when everybody started getting to the Brooklyn Bridge, and everybody around us was yelling that they're bombing the buildings in Lower Manhattan, because the building we just came out of, to New York Plaza, we couldn't see the buildings around us, so we thought that they were destroyed also. Until we finally got up on the little curve to get onto the Brooklyn Bridge. And from there, I remember turning around and looking back and not seeing Tower 2. And I'm like, Mom, the building that I was in is gone. She goes, oh, building just can't disappear. I'm like, Mom, look back. The whole building I just came from is gone. That's Tower 1. It has the little pole on top. It's Tower 1. The building I just came from is gone. And she's like, there's no way a whole building can just disappear. Come on, let's go. And while I'm like yelling at her, looking back to show her that the building is gone, we start seeing Tower 1 start crumbling. And we're like now turning on this ramp. And I'm like, Mom, we gotta run. We gotta run. And I'm like starting to run. I've got boots. I love boots. Boots take you places. She's in like 6, 7, 8, I don't know, but she's in heels. I'm like, you gotta take your shoes off. And my dad is like trying to pull her and like, take your shoes off. And she's like, I can't run without my heels. And she's like holding my hair, like the night before, holding my hair. So I can't run because she's afraid of losing me. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna breathe through this. And she's just like, like my dad's like, cover your face. And we slowly walked across the entire Brooklyn Bridge to get home. I don't know, it was a long walk. It wasn't bad. It was a long walk when you can't see very much in front of you, around you, and you really don't know what was happening. I remember the entire time thinking, hey, if they're bombing buildings in Manhattan, why would they not bomb the Brooklyn Bridge? I was literally prepared to die on the Brooklyn Bridge. It was just this solace and this calm, and it's fine. What's gonna happen is gonna happen at this point, until we made it across, and it's like, okay, adrenaline, we gotta get home now. And when you got home, we gotta find my sisters. They're in Midtown, and then the baby sisters in Uptown. And that's another amazing story, because like my dad, when he was leaving Midtown, he said he grabbed his phone and called my uncle and told him, hey, Sophie's in the World Trade Center, and he's gonna go and try to get to my mom and make sure she doesn't go over there. And my uncle was like, what? When did she start working there? Okay, well, I think, and he was just like, okay, go ahead, get to them. And without telling my dad what he was gonna do, instead of going home to his family in the midst of all the chaos, he walked up to 96th Street from Lower Manhattan to get my sister and walk home. Because at the time she was very young. I think she just started 6th grade or 7th grade, and they wouldn't let her leave by herself, and they weren't letting anybody else back into the city. So I really don't know what would have happened to her if he had not made that decision to go and get her at that time.
Right.
My other two sisters who were in Midtown, they were able to work together and take care of each other and get home that afternoon. I remember watching the sun set, like watching the seconds, and feeling hard to breathe until everybody finally made it home. But they did. They did. Now, I did talk about the story of the grandmother who was concerned about her grandkids. Later that night, we were watching the news like everybody else, and we were on New York 1. And they said, if you know somebody who was in the buildings that day, call in. So, they want survivors' accounts or what it was like in the building. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to them. And I get on the phone, I tell them what happened, and it was live. So as I'm talking in the living room, they're listening to it in another room. And then I get off, finish telling the story, and it was just like, whew, felt good to get that out. And then they called back from the news station and said, hey, several people called in, and they're asking if it's okay to get your phone number because they have people who were in the building also who haven't made it home. And it was maybe about 9, 10 o'clock at the time. And the phone started ringing. Hi, my husband was on the 92nd floor also, blah, 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 and we'll do the same thing. I have you. No, I don't know that name, I'm sorry. And then there was a call, and it was a little girl. And she's like, and I didn't tell the news station the story about the grandma. It was a little girl, and she says, hey, my grandma was in 2 World Trade Center, and she was on the 110th floor, and she hasn't made it home as yet. And I was like, is your dad in jail? Is your mom not with you in treatment? And she's just like, yes. And do you have 2 other siblings? Yes. Can you call the police and tell them that your grandma was in the towers and she hasn't made it home as yet? And then call me back and let me know when you call the police. And she calls me back and she says, hey, I called the police. They said they're on their way. And so did you see her? I'm like, yeah, I saw her. And she's worried about you guys, and it'll be okay. The police are coming, right? And I couldn't take a call after that. That shut me down. And how you started this session was about how small our circles are, how small our world is. And in that moment, the world was extremely small and extremely hurtful because I was 18, 6.5 months pregnant, didn't have my life together. I was scared, and they were more scared than I am. And I didn't know how to help.
Right.
I didn't know how to help them. I didn't know how to help myself. And I shut down. I think that was the biggest thing that kind of made me numb, not being able to help somebody else or help myself.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I can't even imagine what you were thinking as you were going down the stairs. The detail that you've shared is incredible. I don't know that I would have been able to remember. I don't know. I know your brain is a very powerful instrument, right? And yeah. So one question that does come to my mind is when you were going down the stairs, did you stay in the same stairwell? Like what?
No,
Okay.
I jumped across a big part, didn't I? So
I don't know.
I did.
Okay.
Going down the stairs, so started on the 92nd floor. I kept stopping with Rhonda to find a phone to call my mom, tell her not to come to me. So that kind of delayed getting down. And when I was around the 80s or so, early 80s, yeah, high, I was still pretty high up. The plane hit Tower 2. I was in the stairwell, and I remember I was walking down. There's a wall in front of me, and to the right, as I was getting ready to turn, the doorway, open doorway, and I was supposed to be going down the other way. And I remember coming down, and as I was about to turn, feeling the floor falling from under me, seeing this crack, like the wall just breaking open, like when you like hold a big Italian bread and just break it open, the wall is just like breaking open in front of me. And I don't remember where, when, what, or how. I just remember jumping and falling into the doorway and kind of pulling myself in. Never looked back and just ran down a hallway. And it opened up into like this little open space. There was not an archway, it was an archway, but it was a square opening. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing two grown men down with their hands above their head, and the woman was standing over them with her hands like almost holding up, and somebody was yelling earthquake, and everybody else like ceiling tiles, everything was just still shaking, and everything went dark, absolutely dark. And people started screaming as soon as it stopped shaking as much. They started screaming, "We're gonna die! We're gonna die!" This guy started grabbing a chair and was like breaking the window because it was dark and smoky, and all the alarms were just going off. And he's like breaking this window, and other people are screaming, "We're gonna die!" And I remember screaming, "I'm not gonna die. I never had to study for a test. God never let me study for a test. I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna see my unborn son. I'm not gonna die." And I got angry. I was so angry. And I started looking. I remember like opening doors, bathroom, no, opening doors, no, no, no. And then I finally found a door, and there was a stairwell. I can pass on the stairwell. There were no other stairwells. There was just one that I can pass. And I ran back, and I'm like, "Guys, there's a stairwell. Guys, we gotta go. There's a stairwell." And they're just screaming, "We're gonna die. We're gonna die." And it was pandemonium. And they were adults. I felt like, what else am I supposed to do? Drag every one of them? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I can't. And I just took off. I took off, got in that stairwell, and I was gone. And that's when, on that other stairwell, that's when I started meeting the other people and have that other lady tell me, "You got to keep going." And that's before I saw the other lady with the purse, the old lady with the purse, was that second stairwell.
So do you know if any of the other people that you were with in the original stairwell made it out?
Around me, behind me? No. I remember there was one, like my immediate supervisor, not Patrice, Claire. I remember seeing her blonde hair going down like a few floors or so, like a few paces in front of me. So she was way in front of me, and I saw her after 9/11, and she survived, and she's doing well. I think I haven't heard from her since. Yeah. But no, it wasn't until 2015 when I met my husband, and I slowly revealed to him, like I told him, I worked in the World Trade Center. I do have some PTSD, and I remember him calling me one day and was like, "Hey, we need to talk." And he sat down, and I sat down next to him, and he goes, I was doing some research, and based on where you were on that floor, not many people survived. And he told me a number, and I was like, that's not true. There were people like all around me, and there were so many people in the stairwell. I was never alone. And he goes, yeah, but where the floor fell from under your feet, how many people do you think survived? And I cried. I cried a dirty, ugly, hard cry, because 2015, what was that? 14 years later, was my first time realizing if I had to jump onto a floor and pull myself up, what happened to the people that were next to me? My brain, along with it blocking off 72-3, decided that I wasn't supposed to remember the people next to me fell.
Are you okay to keep going?
Oh, yeah. This is going to be 21 years this year. And this is my first year. I'm waiting to celebrate a 1-year anniversary on May 1st of feeling like I am taking control of my life. This is my story. It used to be a story. It used to be a thing that I can tell you about. But now this is a thing that happened to me and what I learned and how I use all of this information to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that you have done is created a counseling service company, right? And what is the name of that company and the significance, Sophia?
It's 92 Reasons. 92 Reasons is the name of our company. It's because it started on the 92nd floor, and I told myself every reason. I got to see my unborn child. I got to get to my sisters. I got to get to my parents. There's so many things that I want to do in my life. And there were reasons after reasons after reason. I'm talking my way all the way down from the 92nd floor. And years later, it's like, oh, well, you survived because of this. You survived because of this. You survived because of this. No, I survived because I didn't lose hope in myself. I had hope in myself. We have all of these reasons. You have all of the reasons why you do things on a daily basis. And those reasons are just to get you from point A to point B. But the main reason is that we don't lose hope in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So from 8:46, when you arrived and the first plane hit One World Trade Center, until I believe it was 9:59, 56 minutes later, is when you made it to your mom. 56 minutes, and stairwells, some bottoms falling out. Do you remember any conversations in your head that you were having besides the 92 Reasons? Was there any conversation with a higher power or anything of that nature that was happening?
There were lots of arguments with a higher power afterwards. Lots of arguments. But besides me saying, I'm not going to die. God didn't make me have to study for tests. I never had to study for tests, or God's going to let me see my unborn son. No, that was it. And just this year, January of this year, I joined a new church, Word of Truth Family Church in Arlington. And Pastor Connor said, a lot of people spend time praying, but you have to know when to stop praying and to declare. And when you make that declaration, God's going to come through. Because when you're praying, it's almost like asking your mom, Mom, can I do this? Or Dad, can I do this? Mom, I want to do this. Dad, can I do this? And it's the difference between going and saying, listen, this is what I need. I'm going to find a way to do it. Are you going to help me? And for 20 years, going on 21 years, people have been asking me to write this story about 9/11 And I love writing about this story. It's a hard story to write about, but I like writing and I like reading. So when I read other books, it needs to make sense. I can't tell you how many stories about survivors' experiences I've picked up, and after like the first sentence, and I'm like, did anybody edit this? I'm sorry, I can't finish this because it's a wound still. And there's a difference between reading somebody's hurt and reading somebody's inspiration. I want my book to be about inspiration, not about hurt. So I had to not write from a place of hurt, and I didn't know how to explain how I survived because it makes no sense. I told you the story. It doesn't make sense how I survived, right? Like where's the timeline? Like how do you get from point A to point B? Like it just seems like, how do you black out for all of those steps? Like what happened? If I can't explain what happened to myself, how am I supposed to explain what happened to you?
Right.
And then when Pastor Connor said, there's a time for praying and there's a time when you declare what's going to happen, I was like, that's what I did. I'm trying to figure out how I, this human being, made that happen. But at one point I declared, God is going to do this. And guess what happened? It happened. I saw my unborn son. I survived. So why am I trying to figure out how man did it when God did it?
Wow. Wow. And that was a question I was going to ask as well, is were you because when you said you jumped into the hallway from that stairwell and pulled yourself up, I'm assuming you didn't jump backwards on your back. So if you were jumping forward, I was hoping that the baby survived.
Yeah, that's our Michael.
That's your Michael.
That girdle works.
Great. Credit the girdle.
That's our Michael.
Yeah. Wow. Sophia, there's so much more that I want to ask, and I would love to have you back as a guest in the future to talk through some other things. And I know you're writing a book, and what is that book's title?
I am currently almost finished and getting ready to publish a book called Relive, Recycle, and Renew. Relive because of all of the traumas that has happened in my life, all of the things that I kept reliving, that I took and I recycled it and created this company, created these new ways of healing, and I renewed my purpose in life. I renewed my sense of self. And this book is it's a mini memoir. It's not a big book. It's a small book detailing life from Trinidad all the way through divorce, getting divorced while I was a Catholic, going through emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. It tells literally everything in there. And at first, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of secrets in that book, but it's the biggest source of healing. And it is the foundation of who I am, why I am what I am, and why I do what I do. And it's making it so much easier now to finish the book about what happened on 9/11, because I took the time to look back at me and to understand me.
Yeah. A couple more just questions that I have for you is something that's coming to me that I have to ask, and that is, you were one of, I believe the number is 18. You were one of 18 who survived, who was above where the second plane hit. That tells me that your purpose had not been fulfilled yet. What do you see as, what is your purpose? Do you know what that is? Are you still discovering that?
Man, that's a big question. I recently found a good counselor. I can't tell you how many counselors I've been through. I found a good counselor. In our very first session, she said, "What is your purpose?" I remember being so angry and frustrated. It's like, I just need to stop being depressed. Why are you asking me about my purpose? And I remember being so excited, telling her, I found my purpose. And it actually, I have been doing it. I have been doing it all along. I have been helping people, finding different ways to understand. When it came to counseling, you have to understand that everybody isn't the same. You have clients who need to vent, to just release everything. They need support. You have clients who need a little bit of support and they need a little bit of direction, but they don't want to do the work themselves. They rather take it to a mechanic. Then you have clients who said, I'm buying this car because I want to know how to fix this car when I'm ready. I don't want to buy the car where I have to carry it to somebody else to fix. Mm-hmm. And that's who I was. I was the client who I needed to know how to fix it myself. I needed to understand it. And I don't want you just giving me pity. I need to understand my brain, my body, my environment, and I need to make it work. And that's missing a lot in counseling. And that's why a lot of guys don't like going to counseling, because they don't like having to keep going and going and going to have somebody else fix them. They need to be the man. They need to know, this is what I do in this situation. This is how I help somebody else in this situation. And that's the missing piece that I bring. That's my purpose, is to share how you merge all of those. We do a lot of psychoeducation in counseling with me. We literally talk about atoms. We talk about boundaries, not in the sense of mental health boundaries. I literally show you physical boundaries and teach you how to use those. So we take counseling from something that seems cerebral and something that seems magical almost. And that's why a lot of people don't really focus on their mental health, because you can't see it. But I bring it where it's like you see how it applies. I love physics, and I'm able to relay that information in different ways so people can truly understand mental health and make a change in their life and learn how to take control of their life. And that's my purpose, is to learn how to share that message, because it's not religious. It's not about just science. It's about you. Mm-hmm. It's about me. It's about us.
Yeah. And today was about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that if you don't think that story was inspiring, then I don't know. You must not have a pulse. It's this is the reason why I'm doing this show, is everybody has a story, and some will be inspiring, some will be motivational, some will just be a story, right? And that's fine.
Yes.
And I just really appreciate you sharing your heart and your soul with us today. I wish you the best in what's coming for you. I see greatness happening. I can't wait to read the book. Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, Sophia Cannon, and thank you for tuning in today. And tune in next week as we have another fascinating person telling their inspiring story. Have a great day.
The Matt Hilton Show would like to thank our sponsors, Hilton Realty Advisors and Maria Leach with the First United Mortgage Group. The Matt Hilton Show would also like to thank our partners, the Who Do You Know organization. You can find out more at wdyk.org. If you'd like to contact Matt or know a fascinating person with an inspiring story that would make a great guest, reach out to the show at themattHiltonshow@gmail.com.